Congratulations on the film. I've had a chance to sit down and watch it and I loved it. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So this is an autobiographical tale. When did you make the decision to make it as a film? Like, was there a time in your life when you decided that this is the right time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of imagined as I was growing up, whenever there was something challenging going on in my life, I was kind of imagining my life as a sort of over the top musical comedy. And then, I became a filmmaker when I came to the States, and around the time that Olympics were happening in Sochi in Russia,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of controversy about, having it in Russia because of its human rights record. And so I wanted to share my story of, what was it like to grow up in Russia and sort of to contribute to that conversation.
Yeah. When you were going back and writing it, did you find it a difficult process or did you find it an easy process to write?
It was pretty easy, I have to admit, because as like an immigrant in the States, people always ask you where you're from, and then they ask you a story. So I feel like I've been telling the story over and over again for a long time. It was almost one of the sort of motivations behind making the film is to just put it out there in the film form, so I can say to people just watch the movie as opposed to having this long
Yeah.
story to tell. So in that way, it was easy. I think the challenging part, anytime you adapt a real life story into film, is condensing things. So I was determined not to make anything up. So I like to say that the film is 99% faithful to my life. But at the same time, I think where I did have to change things is when you basically condense. So making out of 10 different real life people, you make one character just because you can't cover all of those people from your real life.
Yeah. For young screenwriters who are listening to the show at the moment, how did you go about that process? What was the process of sitting down and saying, right, I'm going to combine this character with this character?
This was sort of when I started writing, and initially I realized pretty quickly on that I just can't include everything. My mom had several boyfriends in Russia. There's just no way to have those characters in a film that's 90 minutes or under 2 hours. Or I was raised by several grandmothers, but I just made it into one grandmother because again, there's just too many characters, and I realized that I had to focus on the meat of the story and the main characters, and not worry about including every person that was relevant in my life or important in my life. So just condensing, is something I realized really early on in the process that I had to do.
Yeah. And did you write solely from your own memory, or did you go back and talk to people that were there during those times? Because I know, in our family, we had a very famous incident that happened at a Christmas party when I was very, very young. And my recollection of what happened is very different to how my mum remembers it and things like that. So how did you go about doing that side of the script?
Yeah, as far as my family, I'm only close to my mom, and I'm really, really close to my mom. We live in the same city. We talk several times a day. My stepfather died. My grandmother passed away. So the only person that I would have those conversations with was my mom. And, especially things that weren't really, that I wasn't directly privy to, her work when she worked as a doctor in prison. Obviously, she would tell me stories when I was growing up, but I wanted to rehash those and have those conversations with her again. And the same with her relationship with my stepfather, with my American stepfather that she married. I had conversations with her to sort of remind me how things went, or what her experience was, because she was really, trying to shield me from a lot of the craziness going on as well. But yeah, so I would say I only consulted with my mom, and then other than that, it's just my own memories or perception of things, how they happen.
Yeah. So, how difficult was the casting? Because you have to basically go out and try and find people who are going to play your own mother or play your own grandmother. Did that make casting an interesting thing for you?
It was it was really scary at first because all of the work that I've done in the past has been fictional, and generally what I like to do is write roles specifically for people that I know. So and I've worked with a lot of theater actors and burlesque performers and musicians and drag performers and cabaret performers, and that's how I like to work, is sort of write roles specifically for people, artists that I really love. And because the story is so specific, I couldn't do it. So for the first time in my life, I actually went through like a casting process, which at first was really intimidating because I, specifically for kids, finding the little potato who would be sort of in the 13 to 16 age range, and then finding sort of the teenage potato who should be in the late teens, early 20s. I didn't know any actors like that offhand, so we had a casting process, and I was really worried that we wouldn't be able to find somebody good, especially with kids, because I've never worked with kids before, and I never wanted to work with kids.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, a very pleasant surprise, the boys that we auditioned were so talented. Like, there were so many really, really good young actors, and it just blew me away, because I'm like, where do they get the depth and the experience, to be so expressive and subtle and thoughtful in their performances. And then we found Hirsch, of course, who ended up being cast, and my producer, Misha, and I instantly knew that that's who we wanted to be Little Potato, and sort of similar process with the other young actors in the film. And then Leah Delaria, who plays my grandma, I sort of wrote the role hoping that she'd accept the role. Of course, I didn't have any way of knowing that she would come on board. But when we got a casting agent to cast sort of a couple of famous actors in the film, we pitched it to Leah, and she came on board right away. And so we were really happy with that. And same with, Dan Lauria, who plays my stepfather. He's such an iconic actor here in the States because of the Wonder Years role that he had. And then Jonathan Bennett, of course, has a huge cult following because of Mean Girls. So it was fun to sort of bring those actors from LA and New York and plant them in our mostly Seattle cast.
Yeah. Did your mum have any say in who played her?
She didn't, she was pretty up-hands in terms of, like, she didn't care as much, and she trusts me to make the story in a way that's faithful. But she did have one note that's really funny. Like, she has really thick curly black hair in real life, and she said, I really don't want you to, like, have a blonde, like, blonde actress in the film, because it's like all the actors is always blonde. Like, can she have the same hair as me? And fortunately, like, the amazing actresses that got to play her role both have light, straight hair. So we worked with this amazing wig master, Dennis Malambenzi, who created original wigs. And we were able to sort of create this continuity with her character through different wigs. But yeah, so at the end, the character does have the kind of hair that my mom wanted.
Yeah. Wes, was it kind of surreal for you on set directing scenes of your own life playing out in front of you? Was that kind of a surreal moment?
There were some moments that were really surreal. I think most of the time I was so busy and so in the moment trying to, multitask and make the film happen that I didn't think about it. But there were definitely moments when we would slow down and I would just have this sort of weird being John Malkovich kind of experience where, like, the coming out scene in the film, it's written exactly as I remember it, that conversation with my mom and I. And so I just remember being in this tiny bedroom, crouching, hiding next to the bed with my DP and the sound person, and just feeling really weird and surreal, having this characters replay something, having actors replay something that actually happened, and repeat the dialogue in the way that that I remember it happening. So I did have those moments. I remember my mom came on set during a really kind of crucial, really dramatic scene in the film, and she was just like, "Oh my God, this is just how it happened. How did you know?" I was like, "Well, you told me how it happened." That's how I tried to portray it in the film.
Definitely. This film is so close to your heart. How did you feel before it premiered at South by Southwest?
It was super exciting. It's, South by has meant so much to me. I premiered my short doc there before, and it's such an amazing festival. It really feels sort of like a creative home, and it was very, very exciting. Of course, it was really different because it was all online that year. So the festival, they did a great job creating a virtual experience for people. And I think they did as good a job as anybody could. But it's still, it's still not quite the same when you are not seeing the film with a live audience. So this was last March, I think, and as things started to open up, it was really exciting to start to see the film with live audiences around the country and just seeing how people react and hearing them laugh and hearing them just gasp during certain moments. It's exciting.
Wes, this is such a powerful film, and a lot of young people will probably watch this film that are going through a similar experience to you. What do you hope that people take away from this film?
I think, it's such a cliche in a way, but I do want young kids to just understand that it's going to get better. I just remember myself at that age, and things just feel so over the top and so dramatic, and when you're sad, when you're that age and you're sad or you're frustrated, it just seems like this is how it's always going to be. And I just want to tell kids that dream big and fight for the kind of life that you want, and it will get better as you become an adult. Like, things will improve.
Definitely. Well, Wes, I just want to finish the interview by saying congratulations on such a fantastic film. And is there anything you'd like to say to people out there before they sit down and watch the film?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to give a shout out, because you're in Australia, right?
That's right, yes.
I wanted to give a shout out to our amazing composer, Catherine Joy, who's she's actually a director of Women Composers Association in Los Angeles, but she's from Australia, and she's been a collaborator for many years, and I'm just so excited to work with her again. She was one of two composers who created the score, and then she arranged this amazing orchestral score for this really small budget film, which was just such a privilege,
Definitely.